It has been almost 2 months since Peter Murrell admitted embezzling more than £400,000 from the SNP. And since the bombshell, more and more shocking details have continued to emerge. But for Professor James Mitchell, the circumstances surrounding the scandal are anything but surprising. He insists it was a long-standing culture of secrecy and cover-up in the party that allowed Murrell unchecked access to party funds. Mr. Mitchell said,
"Like a plumbing system that's gone wrong, revelations from the greatest scandal in the SNP's history were emerging in dribs and drabs before the full disclosure of Peter Murrell's embezzlement, and details keep coming. John Swinney has struggled to close it down and is unwilling to order an independent inquiry into how embezzlement on such a scale continued over so many years."
I don't think there's a need for a Holyrood inquiry, but it's up to Holyrood committees to decide what they want to do. There has been a police investigation. There can be nothing more detailed than a police investigation. And the police investigation has led to a criminal case which has found there was criminality involved.
Murrell has carried the can, but many others share responsibility, which explains why Swinney has no appetite for an independent inquiry. Those few who dared to raise questions had been treated as if they were the guilty party.
What would you say directly to John Swinney?
Apologise to those of us who tried to carry out our job as elected party officials to scrutinise the finances and set up an independent inquiry and ask Kirsten Oswald to consider her position as a government minister.
An inquiry would expose concentric circles of complicity rippling out from the former chief executive. The most culpable were those closest to Murrell, who somehow did not see the big spenders accumulating expensive luxury items and that large sums of SNP money went unaccounted. Another circle of complicity lies beyond those closest to Murrell. According to the SNP's constitution, the National Executive Committee, which includes all senior office bearers plus party representatives from across Scotland, is responsible for the ownership of the party's assets and management of the party's financial affairs. Most members not only failed in this basic responsibility, but joined Nicola Sturgeon in attacking those who took this duty seriously.
I've been on this body when the party has frankly been teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The party's never been in a stronger financial position than it is right now, and that's a reflection of our strength and our membership. So just a bit of context for us all to remember. Secondly, I'm not going to get into the details. That's for Douglas. That's what he's elected to do. And of course, this body is the governing body of the party. But, just be very careful, all of us, about suggestions that there are problems with the party's finances, because we depend on donors to donate. There are no reasons for people to be concerned about the party's finances, and all of us need to be careful about not suggesting that there is. And lastly, we've got to be careful as an NEC. We don't reap what we sow. If we have leaks from this body, as I said earlier on, it limits the ability for open, free and frank discussion. This is the governing body of the party with the responsibility to pass a budget. In all the years I've been on it, there has been good quality, detailed financial information given by national treasurers, and that's how it should be. But if there are leaks, as with everything else, that gets more difficult to do. So everybody has to be very clear about that. And, if I was a betting person, and just to be clear, Alison, this is not directed at you in any way, shape or form, but if I was a betting person, I would bet we'll see the statement that's just been read out in public this afternoon. So I hope I'm wrong about that, and it might do a great benefit for the confidence we all have in the discussions we can have in this NEC if I am proved wrong about that. And I'm sure I won't be the only one looking to see whether that is the case or not.
And then Nicola came in very clearly to shut it down. So she came in and read that statement. I don't think she probably meant to say my name, but she did, which led to a lot of other abuse later on when that video came out from people. But she was talking to me. She was basically saying, basically you shouldn't have been allowed to read that out. The party's never been in better financial health. So she was using her positional authority to demean what I'd said. It was like, I'm the First Minister of Scotland, I'm the leader of the party, you've just read that out, but I know better. My first thought was, how do you know? I'm in the Finance and Audit Committee and you're not. How do you know? And that's what was in my head. what have you seen to give you comfort that we haven't been able to get to give us comfort? And that was the bit that really shocked me, that she had such confidence to say that. And it just meant, I mean, nobody backed me up in that meeting. It was very lonely, because it wasn't until the police asked me about it and said, did anybody ask you a question? Did anybody come in to say, you know, stop treating her like that? You know, and nobody did. And I said to them, you know, he said, why do you think it was? And I said, well, it was a very toxic environment. It was a bit like a head and a stick. I was the head on the stick. And they said to me, if that happened to someone else and you'd been there, would you have spoken up? And I said, yeah, I would have, because I had spoken up at previous NEC meetings when other people have been attacked, because it's not the way you do, you know, meetings. It's not the way you conduct yourself. It's not constructive, you know, and it's bullying at the end of the day.
Complicity, whether through acquiescence or collusion, ran through the SNP and was a function of unhealthy, unthinking loyalty. And it has had consequences for how the SNP has run Scotland. The same culture of secrecy, cover-up and fear that allowed Peter Murrell unfettered access to party funds has too often been evident in the SNP government. Flawed policies designed to grab a headline that had not been thought through have become a hallmark of the SNP government. Special advisers with little or no policy expertise, along with MSPs and MPs, fearful of being marginalised and abused, discouraged essential constructive criticism, resulting in expensive and damaging decisions. Nobody close to or in the SNP's leadership asked how the attainment gap in education would be closed, pointed out that it was absurd to launch a ferry which was far from seaworthy, that was fitted with plywood funnels and painted squares masquerading as windows, that putting rapists into a women's prison was wrong.
Well, firstly, the issues we're talking about in the prison service, let's remember, are not caused by or impacted by the recent legislation passed by the Scottish Parliament, which would have no impact on these issues and in any event is not even in force. Look, I'm not naming individuals, but I think everybody, and I was very clear to say that many of the concerns raised about the recent legislation are real concerns, and I am not in any way suggesting opponents of that legislation are by definition badly motivated. But I think everybody is aware that in this debate, and it always has been the case, and it is the case in many countries, some people who are anti-rights for trans people are probably anti-rights for gay people and other minorities as well. That is a fact.
Where have you seen these things?
Look,
where is this a fact?
I think anybody who looks at this debate can see that very obviously. Now, that doesn't mean everybody or even the majority of people are in that category. But as has been the case...
Don't you think you're sort of somewhat obliged to substantiate that sort of comment? You've already said to take the heat out of this, and now you're saying some people are racist, homophobes and misogynists.
I don't think you have to look very far, and I think most people can see, even opponents of this legislation, I think would accept that there are some people who will argue against rights for gay people. They'll argue in other contexts against rights for women. I was making the point that there are people who have decided to become so-called advocates for women's rights on this issue that have never stood up for women's rights before.
All knew what happened to dissenters. Little seems to have changed under John Swinney. The SNP enters its fifth period in office, facing almighty challenges that could and should have been at least minimised, if not averted, had it taken its governing responsibilities more seriously. The SNP manifesto in May claimed that work was already well underway to replace Monklands Hospital. 7 weeks later, the SNP government announced that the plan was being mothballed as it would not deliver value for money. The action to make sure big supermarkets keep prices low for dozens of food essentials promised in the manifesto lacked the consultation essential for any hope of delivery.
Let's turn to your manifesto and your top ticket pledge, which is, I think, to bring food price caps in for around, I think you said 50 essential items.
20 to 50.
20 to 50. I know in your speech you referenced 6. I went to Lidl. You'll be glad I don't have a bag ready to bring them out. But let's do a little quiz on the cheapest items. How much do you think cheese was, the cheapest cheese?
Listen, we're just going to waste the precious time you've got with me if we do a quiz like this. So
how much do you think all 6 cost?
Well, I think what are the 6 items you're going to put to me?
Cheese, eggs, milk, bread, rice, chicken.
I think That would be probably of the order of about £8, I would think.
Just under about £7.
Well, there
from,
you are.
from
So
the
there,
Lidl.
the First Minister knows what he's talking about when it comes to shopping. So,
do you think that is too high? Is that your fundamental belief? Because that is
well,
pretty cheap.
I think people can't afford that. That's the problem.
Scotland got cheap talk, not cheap essentials. On past form, we can expect the failure of this policy will be blamed on Westminster.
You told Colin Mackay that it couldn't be done overnight, and then you said it would be quite the spectacle if UK Labour block it. That kind of gives your game away, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't, because I'm making an observation that it would be quite a spectacle if a Labour government intervened to stop a Scottish government trying to help people who can't afford their shopping.
Sure.